Rob, the Detroit Lions getting a whole lot of love from Football America. Rob G, a lot of people putting money down on the historically hapless Detroit Lions. Tell us about it.
Oh, that's the understatement of the century. Shout out to Lamar Mitchell, BetMGM, because according to them, the bettors are all in with the capital ALL on the Detroit Lions in 2023. Now, we've known about it for a while that they were heavy bets to win the NFC. That was about a month ago that when it kind of first popped off. But since then, this is what's going on. According to BetMGM, Lions are the most bet team to win the NFC North, both in terms of total bets and total handle, which means total number of bets and total size of the pot. Most bet team to win the NFC, again, both in terms of total bets and total handle, represent their biggest Super Bowl liability of any team in the league. And what's more, Dan Campbell is currently the most bet guy to win Coach of the Year. Aiden Hutchinson, the most bet player to win Defensive Player of the Year. And rookie Jahmyr Gibbs, the most bet player to win NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Wow. Rob, you buying the Lions this year?
You see me right now? I'm not drinking Lions Kool-Aid. This is iced tea, diet iced tea. I'm not, N-O-T, drinking Lions Kool-Aid. I've covered this team, Chris, for 20 years. I went on every road game. I watched the Lions lose 24 straight road games. Not once, Chris, but twice. Did you hear what I said? In the NFL, It's almost impossible. 24 straight road losses, twice during the Matt Millen era when he was GM. This franchise has one playoff win since 1957. That was 1991, Chris. They beat the Dallas Cowboys. I remember watching that game and John Madden on CBS going, "You're watching the two teams of the 90s, the Lions and the Cowboys." That's exactly what John Madden said. And guess what? The Cowboys, who lost that day, became a dynasty and won 3 out of 4. And the Lions never won anything. And I'm not saying that I'm holding their whole history against them, but this over-the-top, the Lions have arrived, and Dan Campbell's this, and that player's great, and all this is total nonsense to me. Because you're not going to go from where they were to all of a sudden world beaters. I don't believe it. Last year they were 1-6 to start. People took their foot off the gas, didn't really think that much of them. And then all of a sudden they started winning games. It's easy to play when there's no pressure and you're just playing because you're on the schedule. It's different when people look at you and now all of a sudden the NFL's put them on Thursday, the opener with the Chiefs. And all this other stuff. Like to me, looking at the Lions, Chris, it could make a great story, but Lions fans and Lions slappies and all that have made it unbearable for regular NFL fans that these also-rans, these doormats, are all of a sudden being elevated to a place they don't deserve. And you know what? If I'm a fan in NFL America, I'm rooting for the Lions to have a flop season and fall on their face. Because all of this attention, all of this praise, all of this money being bet on them is ridiculous. It could be a great story, Chris, if they really truly came out of nowhere and won something. But this build-up and this talk is mashugana, is the craziest thing I've ever heard, and I've been covering the NFL since 1987. I've never seen a team that didn't make the playoffs the year before and so much ballyhoo and excitement and people putting up their dollars. They think they're going to cash in. I saw some, I don't want to use the term, let me say, I saw some crazy fan get a tattoo of the Super Bowl Lombardi Trophy, Chris, with the Lions logo 2024 in their body.
Oh, wow.
Like this is...
That's going a tad bit too far.
This is the most ridiculous thing I've said, but I if I'm a fan of the NFL, I want them to flop on their face.
I think that's going way too far because honestly, Rob, most of the NFL, most of football America couldn't care less about the Detroit Lions. I know people are betting because they think they're going to be good, but I think that the team that really fits your description, I'm not pulling against them, but I'm saying as far as getting all the hype, is the New York Jets. That's the team that's fitting and that's the team where it probably, even though I'm actually hope they have a good season, I picked them to make the playoffs, but that's the team that maybe the better story would be them falling flat on their face. You know, New York, Rob, it would be crazy.
But the only difference is,
I just don't think I know that people don't care about the Jets either, but at least they're in New York, you know?
Right. I'm going to say the only difference, too, is, and we've said this before, Chris, the Jets have been to the AFC Championship game twice, not 40 years ago, okay, when Rex Ryan was the coach. So it's not like the Lions.
But here's the thing.
The Lions have never made an NFC Championship game,
right,
Chris,
but it's
ever.
a new front office. It's a new coaching staff. I mean, many times over from that, over the past
Chris,
several
you know
years.
how many times they said
players.
that? I get it.
No, but I'm just saying, like, that stuff has nothing to do with this regime.
Okay, so what happened the last 31 years since their last playoff?
I mean, they've been bad, but
no, but that's what I'm saying.
They're never going to be good again.
Because
I'm not
saying
players
that.
and GMs and coaches that have nothing to do with the franchise now did.
But that's exactly what, when I worked there, that was the argument.
That's fine,
No, I'm
but
just
that
trying
doesn't mean anything.
I'm just trying to give you that was the argument every year. Like that, this has nothing to do with what happened 20 years ago or 10 years ago or 5. This is what they've been saying all these years is all I'm saying. They've got one playoff victory in 65 years. They've never won the division, Chris. When they changed the division.
The last time they won it, 1993. I mean, it was a different name, obviously.
It was the Central back then.
Right. But here, and I'm not picking them to reach the Super Bowl. I am picking them to win the division and to reach, obviously, the playoffs. And the thing is this, right? They got a good team. Like, Jared Goff, and you and I have talked about this. Jared Goff, I'm not saying he's like a top 5 quarterback. But I think he gets disrespected more than he deserves.
I've said that forever.
Right.
Me and you've had that. We've had that argument. Like when they got rid of him with the Rams, they had the 5th greatest offense in the history of the NFL, Chris. And you can say, all these other guys and all that. I'm like, dude, he was the quarterback. He was a Pro Bowler 2 years in a row at quarterback. I mean, there's only a handful of guys who get picked.
Yep. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown was a good receiver. They lost DeAndre Swift, but I think they'll be fine in the running game. The offensive line is one of the tops in the league. Defensively that was their problem last year. But Rob, and you mentioned it, they started 1-6, but then they went 8-2. I was impressed with the win over Green Bay on the last weekend of the season when Green Bay had everything to play for. They had a shot to get to the playoffs, and Aaron Rodgers is thinking they're going to do it, and the Lions were out of it. They had nothing to play for except pride, and they went out there and beat Green Bay.
See, I disagree with that game. My game would be the game before against Carolina that they needed to win to get to the playoffs. That's when they gave up 350 yards on the ground. Their season was over when they went to Green Bay. That's what I'm saying.
So
it's easier to play that. But it's easier
not
to play
really,
because
it's like, I mean, guys will know they're on tape, so you can't go out there and totally blow it. But they were done. You would have thought they'd have been, disheartened and, their morale is gone. And they go out there and they take it to the Packers. Carolina actually, now I know they should beat Carolina. But they played good football, once they got rid of Baker Mayfield.
You can't give up 350 yards on the ground.
I feel you on that. But that defense, Rob, and the key to them was they don't turn it over. And they didn't give up a lot of sacks. All right. And when they won 8 of their last 10 games, their defense went from giving up 30-plus points a game to giving up 20-plus points a game over the last 10 games. So they're not going to have a top 5 defense by any stretch of the imagination. But I think it'll be good enough, especially in that division. That division is weak. They were giving up 32 points a game in weeks 1 through 8 when they were 1-6, and they gave up 20 points a game in the last 10 games of the season. So I think this is the year they're going to be good. Again, I'm not picking them to reach the Super Bowl, but I do think they're going to end that playoff drought.
This reminds me of when the Baker Mayfield OBJ Browns. You remember that year? I was like,
well, they had one
God,
good year.
They're going to the Super Bowl. Oh, look, they're going to the Super Bowl. It was after that. They had the good year, and then the next year they get OBJ, and it was supposed to be when they made the trade with the Giants, Chris. Oh, they're going to the Super Bowl. That's all I heard, and they had a bad year that year. It didn't work out for them, and I'm going to say that it's different when people aren't expecting you compared to when they're expecting you. No one will sleep on the Lions. They've talked enough big game. They've talked enough that when teams play the Lions, it'll be an appointment game, starting with the Chiefs. That's all I'm saying is, like, no one will be taking the Lions lightly. Like, no one.